as a Christian, where should you stand when it comes to ethical journalism and how to basically interpret these things? And this week we are going to speak just briefly on respecting privacy. And I like to call this journalism with compassion. Because in the fast-paced digital age, especially nowadays, where personal stories are becoming sort of headlines in mere seconds, the ethical responsibility of respecting privacy has never been more critical. And yes, we do have some laws that are sort of going a little bit too far when it comes to the right to privacy. In South Africa, we've got the Right to Privacy Act, which protects us, and we've also got the POPIA Act. And maybe I will delve deeper into these two bills to discuss them briefly, so you know what you can and cannot do online regarding content and sharing things. But this week, let's just stick with journalism with compassion. And journalism walks a very, how can I put this, delicate balance between what the public's right to know is and what the individual's right to dignity is. And in Matthew 7:12, we've got a bit of guidance here where it says, do to others what you would have them do to you. And I'm pretty sure we all know the scripture, but who would have thought that you can apply this to journalism or to online media? For me, this is the golden rule, and it isn't just a moral suggestion. For me, it's a challenge for journalists to approach their craft with empathy and compassion. You can't just exclude yourself from the situation. You need to be able to feel what the people are going through and have compassion for whoever you are writing about or reporting on. The ethics of privacy in journalism is a big thing. Privacy is not just a legal issue, as I said earlier. It's a matter of human dignity. The heart of ethical journalism lies in telling stories that serve the public interest without exploiting individuals. I mean, who wants to be on the wrong side of journalism and be exploited for a story just because it's sensational and it generates clicks? So I have to ask you this question, but at what cost does this come? Respecting privacy goes way beyond individuals to include families. It includes our communities, our cultural identities. We know Christianity is on the end of a lot of attacks these days and made out to be the big bad guy. But here's the thing. When reporting, journalists must ask, is the story in the public interest? Or is it simply just satisfying curiosity? Are we treating those involved as image bearers of God, worthy of dignity and respect? Two very important questions. What are the dangers of overstepping boundaries? I mean, when privacy is disregarded, the consequences are seriously significant. Intrusive journalism can traumatize victims or even re-traumatize them after they have gone through a very bad or harrowing experience, and then they have to relive this. And I use the notable case of invasive coverage, not that anyone has to agree or disagree with how this went, but if you just have to sit from a neutral point of view and look at the way the media jumped on the bandwagon with this. Oscar Pistorius, we all know him as the Blade Runner here in South Africa, was put on trial for murdering his girlfriend / fiance, Riva Steenkamp, and it was massive news. Public interest was extremely high. And for me personally, regardless of whether he was guilty, which he was guilty, there's no doubt about that. But certain outlets crossed ethical lines by sensationalizing very private details, detracting from the actual integrity of the reporting for this story. And we know that the Steenkamp family was dragged through the mud on this, and it was a terrible thing for both sides to go through, where it should have been handled a lot better and a lot more dignity and integrity should have been involved with the reporting. The biblical call to do unto others serves as a reminder that the power of the press should not be wielded carelessly. Proverbs 11:12 underscores this and says, whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue. Now, as I like to end with application, how can journalists uphold privacy? I'll give you 4 points. Number one, you can seek consent. Whenever possible, seek permission from those involved, especially when covering sensitive topics. This practice builds trust, and it also ensures that our storytelling remains ethical. Number two, evaluate the public interest. Ask whether the story genuinely serves the public or is actually just exploiting personal details so that we can garner likes, shares, comments, or what we call in the digital space, engagement. Number three, be culturally sensitive. Respect cultural norms and traditions that might influence how privacy is viewed within certain communities. We know that within different cultures, certain things are either more or less private and more or less spoken about. We need to take this into consideration. And number four, the big one for me, avoid exploitation. This is particularly when dealing with children, and I say this because this happens all the time. Children, trauma survivors, marginalized groups of people, we need to prioritize sensitivity and care over sensationalism. So, what are examples of respectful journalism? Now, there's one journalist that comes to mind, and she's an investigative journalist. Her name is Mandy Wiener. She is a journalist at the moment on 702 on Cape Talk, and a columnist for the EWN. And she's also an award-winning author. And she hosts the Midday Report on 702 on Cape Talk. And she is very well known for her ethical approach to high-profile stories in South Africa. Her reporting on crime and corruption avoids all the unnecessary sensationalism, focusing instead on the larger societal issues that are at play. Her work also exemplifies for me how journalism can inform and educate without compromising respect for individuals. Let's inspire action through respect in every story that we are publishing. As journalists, readers, and consumers of media, we all have a role to play in promoting respect for privacy. For journalists, we need to pause before publishing, ask whether our story uplifts or is it tearing down. For you guys as the readers or the content consumers, regardless of what form of content it is, demand accountability from the media outlets. Call out instances where privacy is violated. Stand up and be heard. And then for everyone, try and share stories that are inspiring, that garner respect and celebrate journalism that balances both truth and compassion. Let us make 2025 a year where dignity and privacy are prioritized in every headline. No clickbait, guys. By doing this, we reflect God's love and bring healing to a world, especially now, a world that is desperate for compassion. And as Christians, we know the most about compassion, true compassion anyway.